Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar brought to you by Bright Horizons and College Coach, entitled The College Expert Roundtable, Admissions and College Finance Updates. I am Patrick Donovan, General Manager here at College Coach, and I'm thrilled to see so many of you have decided to join us today over your lunch or maybe over your breakfast for those of you in California. I'm talking to you today from our College Coach World Headquarters just outside of Boston, Massachusetts. All of your lines have been muted, but we want to get your feedback throughout this presentation, so please use the questions box at the bottom of the screen to submit any questions you have as we go through this for myself or the other experts that will be talking. I should say the real experts that will be talking. We will see those questions, and then we will send those along to the right person. I have two experts here from College Coach on the line with us today, and we have a very tight 30-minute agenda to give you some really important information on some major changes in college admissions and college finance that have come about in the last couple of months. At the end of the webinar, I'll let you know about a special drawing we plan to do with a prize for 3 attendees of today's conference, and I can tell you're all excited about that. And finally, we want to make this an interactive session, so in addition to the questions in the box below, we'll have a couple polls to keep you engaged. And so we're going to start with the first poll right now. Let me get that up so you guys can answer it. This is a poll about employee stress. Question is, for your employees with children, how stressed do you think they feel about their children's college plans? I can see the answers flying in. This could be either about admissions stress or college finance stress. And this is also just a practice for you guys can answer these polls. We'll have 2 or 3 of these during the presentation, again, just to keep people engaged and motivated. Okay, so I can see we do have agreement on the line that there is some high levels, moderate to high levels of stress in the organization. We agree, and actually a little bit later in this webinar, we're going to show you some new data from the consulting group here at Bright Horizons to give you some more information about that. Okay, let me introduce our experts. So I'm thrilled to have Karen Crowley with us. Karen is former Senior Admissions Officer from the University of Pennsylvania and Boston University. She leads our admissions experts here at College Coach. Karen, I want to let you say hello and share a little bit more information about what makes you an expert.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to learn a little bit more about these current updates that are happening in admissions and college finance recently. As Patrick mentioned, I began my career in admissions as an undergraduate admissions officer at Boston University. I then worked at the University of Pennsylvania as a senior admissions officer, and then I worked for 5 years at an independent school in New York City, the Dalton School, where I did college counseling and was the dean of students. And I think one of the things that I love about my work at College Coach is that I am able to tell the truth in a different way than I was when I was working in admissions or in college counseling, and that I can share some real information with students and with families about how to make the process more organized and less stressful, and really give some inside scoop on what colleges really mean when they say certain things. So it's been a great place for me to be.
Excellent. Thanks, Karen. Next, we have Robert Weinerman. Robert is one of the country's leading authorities on college finance. He was quoted in the Wall Street Journal 6 times in the past year. Robert, could you please say hello and share any more information you'd like to share?
Sure, Patrick. Hi, everybody. I am thrilled also to have the opportunity to talk to you about some real surprising and significant changes in college finance that we're looking at for the next year. I came to College Coach over 10 years ago, having been a financial aid officer. I did most of my work at MIT, where I learned financial aid, and I was actually the person in charge of the application process, making sure people got financial aid into their hands. And I also worked at schools like Babson College and a number of other smaller schools located in the Boston area. You'll probably hear me say this again later on, but I love working at College Coach because I have the opportunity to talk to people and help them prepare for what is really a big, complicated black box of financial aid stuff, and make sure that they understand how financial aid can help them, but also so they don't waste time doing things that aren't going to be helpful to them at all. Thanks, Patrick.
Excellent. Thanks, Robert. And again, for me, my name is Patrick Donovan. I'm the general manager here at College Coach. I can probably provide expert knowledge on having 4 children. I do have 4 children, ages 9 to 14, or as I've started to think of them, my $1 million of future college expenses. And I do have gray hair. Okay, on to the agenda. I'm going to give you one slide only on the Introduction to College Coach for folks in the audience that maybe don't know who we are. But thank you for joining, even though you didn't know who we are. So I'll just do one slide on that. Robert will take you through some of these developments in college finance. Karen will then do some admissions updates. And at the end, we're going to have hit as many questions and answers as we can. So please use that, again, that questions box below to ask questions throughout, and we will answer those at the end, as many as we can, for as much time as we have. Okay, one slide on College Coach. So College Coach was founded in 1998, and we became part of Bright Horizons in 2006. We've been doing this for about 15 years now. Like Bright Horizons, our focus is on improving employee well-being and removing distractions so employees can be fully present and fully engaged while they're at work. And our area of focus, obviously, is helping employees with the stress they feel regarding the college process for their children. This can, again, relate to admission stress or finance stress, and it applies for employees with newborns all the way through college-age children. What we then did is we went out and hired experts from colleges like the ones you see filling the screen now, folks like Karen and Robert, who were the decision makers at the schools that you see here. So they may not have gone to those schools, although in many cases they did. But the point is that they decided on the application, the admissions application, they doled out the financial aid, so they know the college process from the inside. They then put together their expert knowledge, and employees can access that in a variety of ways I won't get into because we only have 30 minutes. But the important thing to know is over the 15 years we've been doing this, we've gotten significant results and a great ROI. So employees definitely have improved well-being and report lower stress. They're very grateful and very engaged with the employer that provided to them, and emphatically they get more college acceptances for their children. They realize lower student loan debt and greater financial aid. And those are the facts, and if you're interested, let us know and we'll give you more information about that. Okay, now that you're sold, we'll keep going. All right, expert knowledge. So if you don't know, Bright Horizons has a consulting group that does studies, regular studies on well-being and wellness. They just concluded one focused around the college arena, and I just want to share a couple of data points from that. First, for folks, especially those with teenagers, 16 to 18, there's no question that they are feeling a very significant source of stress from either paying for your child's education, almost 9 out of 10, or the college application process, almost 8 out of 10. So this is the data we have. I'd be curious to know if you guys are asking these kind of questions in your own wellness or well-being surveys. I think you should. It's definitely an issue, whether or not it's talked about in the hallways, it's definitely an issue on the minds of especially parents of older children, those teenagers. Second point is folks are unfortunately using work time to navigate this process. It's probably not surprising, but it's true that they're doing it. As you can see here, 2/3 of folks that have either a child in college right now or applying to college, actively applying, did report to us that they spend time on this while at work, and about a quarter said they spend 5 hours or more while at work, which is obviously not what you want to see. But we want to give you some good news as well. Folks can definitely save significant dollars. So for the employees that did the survey that had access to College Coach services, and Robert will get into this in more detail later, but I just want to show you here that 1 out of 5 who used College Coach saved $10,000 or more. So that's real money. And in an area where, it's hard to give people the raises and bonuses they may think they deserve, to be able to give them real tangible dollar benefits can be really helpful. So let's get into finance. We'll start off with a poll. This one might be trickier, so let me get that up and see if you can handle this one. This will lead into Robert's comments on finance. Okay, so the question is, what does FAFSA stand for? We've already had some people voting. Financial assistance for studious Americans. Finally, a finance solution for all. Let's see what you guys know about finance. The free application for federal student aid, or a federal alliance frightening saving Americans. We're getting votes in all categories. I love that. Okay, Robert is going to tell you the actual correct answer, although people still are voting. That's great. All right, I'm going to close this, and Robert, tell them the right answer.
Great. Well, the answer is free application for federal student aid, but I appreciate people who thought the others were accurate. We at College Coach are able to kind of identify families who have been through the college process and those who haven't by knowing that people have, in fact, experienced the FAFSA and learned how to explain it. And as many of you may know, the FAFSA is the core application for financial aid at all schools in the country that want to administer federal and state aid. And there's a second application that we also deal with called the profile, but we can put that on the table for now. The FAFSA is a core application in financial aid, and it's been relatively stable for about 20, 25 years. And one of the challenges is it's a complicated form, and it requires people to provide information about their tax returns before they filed their tax returns. And one of the things that College Coach does in the January period of time is we actually have a program available for your employees who can listen in on a discussion about the high points of the FAFSA, where we try to help them make sure that they know that they have our support if they have any questions about it, but also to make sure that they get the form done in as timely a manner as possible. One of the biggest problems that people have in the financial aid process is they think they have to wait until their tax returns are completed before they can file the FAFSA, and we are very out front about helping people understand that they need to file the FAFSA as soon as they can so that they are in line to receive aid that may be administered and offered on an as-received application basis. A couple of years ago, both California and New Jersey ran out of some funds before the application deadline was even met because the need for specific kinds of funds was higher than in the past, and they simply exhausted the funds much earlier than they thought. So one of the things that we encourage employees to do through our programs is get this application in as early as possible. But this form has been very stable for a number of years until this year, where the Department of Education surprised everyone and actually changed the definition of family on the FAFSA for students who will be in school starting in August or September of 2014. So for people who are seniors in high school now who will be filing their financial aid applications in January, they're actually going to be asked a different set of questions on the FAFSA about who their parents are than people beforehand. Out of nowhere, the department issued a guidance a couple of months ago that said that instead of the old definition of family, where the student was asked to identify one parent in whose home they lived the most, and the family was defined as that parent and whoever they were married to if they were an opposite gender parent, or just that parent if they were unmarried or married to a same-sex other parent. Next year, the definition of family is actually going to be based on parenting first, marriage secondarily. So what we're going to see is that some people who used to file financial aid applications based on having only one federally defined parent is going to have a second parent having to disclose information on the form. We anticipate this is going to be very challenging for people, especially people who have students in college now, because you can imagine if you've got a student who applied for federal financial aid based on one parent, the old definition, and now they're being asked to include a second parent, there's going to be more income and more assets reported to the school. That student may see their financial aid drop. And so not only are they going to see a different definition on the application and have to figure out what that means, they may have to scramble to figure out how to meet the new shortfall that they might experience. We're preparing in our presentations to address this, and we've already had a couple of questions from people through our help desks who've asked, who've kind of picked up that this is happening and asked what it means for them. As I said, the FAFSA has been a very stable form for decades. This is actually a huge definitional change that we anticipate people are going to really struggle with. The other big thing that's been in the news has been that Congress allowed a interest rate on one of the federal student loans to double on July 1st. coming up to that, the popular press was talking about how interest rates were going to go up, and then they actually went up. We took a lot of calls on our help desk from the employees of our clients, from people asking us, what does that mean? This change had, even if it had not gone into effect, was going to have no impact on historical loans. We have a program called Education Loan Repayment Strategies, and we work with people to make sure that the money they're putting toward repaying their higher education loans that they took out either for their own educations or for their children's educations was being used as effectively as possible to get rid of that debt. And some of the people we've created strategies with were calling up asking if this change was going to change that strategy. We were luckily able to tell them that the loans they had weren't going to be affected. We also are now facing the likelihood that the new student loans are going to have a different interest structure. And so we're preparing to ensure people that they understand that going forward loans are going to have a certain strategy, but their historical loans haven't changed. This is another big change, kind of some of the chaos that's coming out of Washington, that created a great deal of stress for a lot of people who thought they were on track to eliminate their loans and thought that their costs were going to go up. Now finally, one of the things I love about working at College Coach is that I can tell people things that I could never tell them when I was working for MIT as a financial aid officer. When I worked at MIT as a financial aid officer, I was supposed to represent the college and make sure that I was spending the college's money as wisely as possible. People would call me up and say, hey, Carnegie Mellon gave me more money than MIT. What should I do? And I would be able to say, I was supposed to, as an employee of MIT, say, well, you should still come to MIT because MIT is worth a lot more money than Carnegie Mellon, even though the outcomes for an education from MIT and Carnegie Mellon are very similar. As a person at MIT, at College Coach, whose primary role is to make sure your employees have the best positioning in this process that they can possibly have, I'm able to help people think about going back to colleges in an effective way and secure more funds through either asking for more money because the financial aid formula doesn't work for them, or asking for more money simply because they have a better offer from another college. And we do spend a lot of time in the spring helping people develop a strategy to secure the largest amount of either need-based financial aid if they're eligible, or non-need-based financial aid if they're not, from colleges. And negotiation is a big part of what we do, either encouraging people simply to do it, because if they don't do it, they're not going to get any additional money, and the worst case scenario if they do is they'll simply say no, to even helping them position themselves so that when they approach a college and ask for more money, that college feels a real need to share it with them. So as our big three new trends are the new family definition in the Fafsa, just helping people deal with all the news that's come forward with the student loan interest rates and the new definition of interest rates that we're facing in 2013-14, and also the growing role that negotiation is playing in the finance world. And now I'm going to pass it back to Patrick for another poll.
Excellent. Thank you, Robert. I'm glad you ended on some good news, that we can negotiate more than we may think we can. Okay, new poll, which will lead into Karen, and this is about the number of applications that you all may have applied. So let me throw this up here. Okay, how many colleges did you guys apply to? One of the trends we're seeing that Karen may touch on is, the number of applications are definitely going up, and there's a really important change in the most widely used application today that she's going to get into. So let's see. All right, answers are still coming in. So let's say roughly 4. I'm going to say. I did some quick math there. Maybe 5. Okay, great. That's helpful. Thank you for engaging in the poll. And now we will go to Karen.
Great. Thanks, Patrick. As Patrick mentioned, I do think that even if you look at folks and say 20 years ago, look at how many colleges they've applied to versus what the average number of applications submitted by student now is, you can see even in that number, the average student that works with College Coach submits somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 applications. And 20 or 25 years ago, I think 3, 4, 5 was much more commonly the norm. So as the process has increased in complexity, students have continually increased the number of applications that they're submitting, which creates a longer process, a harder process, and certainly a more complex one. The common application, which some of you may have heard of, and certainly those who have, those employees who have children applying to college have heard of. This is the largest single application that is submitted to colleges across the country. As you can see, it's accepted by 488 colleges right now. That number grows all the time. It grows throughout the year. Colleges may join, and certainly every spring there's an increase there. Just 10 years ago, that number was somewhere in the neighborhood of about 275. So you can see that there's been massive growth there. The Common Application has also, similarly to the Fafsa, been a pretty stable form. There have been a couple of online iterations, but they've all been largely in the same platform. And this year, for the first time, the Common Application started from scratch with new code, creating a dynamic form that, especially for families who have recently gone through the process and sort of felt like they began, they understood the process, they knew what the form is going to be. It's going to be very, very different in terms of look, feel, language, links, and the way that a student navigates through the new platform as they complete their applications. To give you a sense, about almost 3 million applications were filed through the Common Application last year, and almost 10 million high school transcripts and other school credentials like letters of recommendation were filed through the Common Application site last year. So this is a place where this year we know guidance counselors are going to have an enormous change to face, and this is on top of all of the other things that they need to do, like scheduling and discipline and managing emotional challenges and other day-to-day things that happen in the life of a high school student. So this is going to be something that employees who are facing the college admissions process for the first time, or even if they've done it before, are going to find probably complicated and a little bit confusing. A major change that lots of people are worried about is that the paper application has been completely eliminated. And again, they're changing language. So in the past, there was one common application and then multiple school supplements. The supplements have been eliminated, and now they have been replaced with school-specific questions. So the good news is that everything is going to be available next week, a week from today actually, on August 1st. In the past, colleges have been able to hold off on putting their school supplement questions up until they were ready, but now everything will be live in this one dynamic form, and we are really advising families. We are already receiving lots of questions through our help desks from employees who are asking how to negotiate, how to manage the new Common Application. And one of the big pieces of advice that we are giving is that people should log on, create an account very, very early so that they can begin to become more familiar with this new form and make it less stressful as they go through the process. The other major change on the Common Application is, for the first time in about 10 years, the essay prompts have been completely overhauled. In addition, the word length has changed. So it used to be that it was a recommended 500-word essay, and now there's a strict limit of 650 words. So it is, again, a real shift. From the past, students could just simply attach a document. The essay could have as many as 850 or 900 words, or as few as 300. And now you'll see that students are going to be held to a much tighter guideline around word length. In addition, people are already finding some of these questions a little bit difficult to negotiate. You can see the first question here. Some students have a background or story that's so central to their identity that they believe their application would be incomplete without it. Most typical 16, 17, 18-year-olds are going to struggle with that question. It's a lot of pressure to try to figure out what's a story that's so central to who I am, that's important enough that I can submit this as part of my college application. We know that from the National Association of College Admissions Counseling survey of colleges across the country that the college essay is the single most important factor in admissions decisions right after grades and standardized testing. So it is really important that students get that right. And it is important that students are able to grab an admissions officer's attention right away. So one of the things that we do on a regular basis, we review thousands of application essays. Starting already, we are pretty busy with looking at employees' children's essays and giving some very concrete feedback on how they can make it better. And then, of course, our favorite time of year is in the spring when we get loads of comments back about how students felt like their essays helped them to get into the school of their dreams, and that the comments and feedback that they received from our experts through the help desk was really something that helped to make a difference in their college admissions process. So this is something we are right in the thick of, and that families are really already trying to sort of wrestle to the ground at this moment. So Patrick, I think I'll hand it back to you.
Excellent. Well done. Those are big changes. Okay, last poll, and then we're going to get to your questions. They've been coming in. Please continue to send those in. We'll get to as many as we can. And this is our last poll of the day. So, this might be my favorite. Is your company planning to add educational advising services like College Coach within a certain time frame? So feel free to enter that. It doesn't commit you to anything. You can be honest. Just answer it. And I really want to thank Robert and Karen for giving us that information. It was really helpful. And now we're going to get to this. So we do have folks that are considering it. I like to see that. That wasn't really the point of this necessarily, but it's good to see. Okay, I'm going to hide that now, and let's get to the questions and answers. We did get several coming in. First one for Robert. So Robert, here's the question. Will the new Fafsa take into account the substantial increase in college costs over the last few years?
It's a great question, Patrick. To my knowledge, the only big change that the FAFSA is going to express is that change about the definition of family. But remember, the FAFSA is a document that simply collects the data that the colleges use to determine how much the family should pay for college. And the reality is it's not so much a realistic expectation of what they can afford, but rather an indexing system that tries to sort people out by their relative abilities to pay so that the colleges can allocate their need-based financial aid as significantly as possible to the people who need it the most. One of the trends that's a longer-term trend than just this year to next year that we've been seeing is a move away from supporting people who have come from low-income families with need-based aid to using scholarships to recruit middle-class families who have higher incomes. And that, while that's not really directly related to the questions on the FAFSA, it is something that your employees need to understand. And we kind of work with them to play that kind of change a little bit. So the answer to that question is not specifically, but we do help people deal with the rising increase in costs and the changing ways colleges are using their financial aid and scholarship budgets to make sure your employees are as positioned as well as possible to secure the largest amount of the relevant kind of financial aid that they'll need to receive.
Great. Thanks, Robert. Let me try to squeeze in one more question. Karen, we got one. Should people take the ACT or the SAT?
Yeah, so we get this question all the time. This is another area that employees find really stressful, parents of college-bound students find really stressful. There are significant differences between the SAT and the ACT. The SAT is a reasoning test, and so that means that some students find it particularly tricky. The ACT is a content-based test, which means that it's not quite as tricky, but it is content-rich, meaning that you're tested on material that you've learned over several years of high school. Our general recommendation is that students try both and then focus on the one, perhaps where they've either seen earlier success or where they feel a greater degree of comfort. This is something, though, that we try to talk through really specifically with employees so that we can learn a little bit more about the student in question and really try to make the most appropriate recommendation and encourage them to create a testing calendar so that they have a good sense of when the tests are taking place, what their choices are, and how potentially they can knock out some of the standardized testing before that crunch of the spring of junior year, a time when things are particularly stressful for both students and parents who are just beginning the college application process.
Excellent. Thank you, Karen. Okay, we've come to the 30-minute mark, so I want to stop now. I do have another question I want to ask Robert to answer, but I just want to let you know first, before we do that we are going to do a drawing, and 3 of you will get to have a one-on-one counseling session with either an admissions or finance expert, someone like Karen or Robert, or maybe even Karen or Robert. You never know. And so you can ask some questions of your own, maybe, or someone from your family that wants some guidance. But I want to thank everyone for giving us 30 minutes of their time. I hope you found this valuable. I think these are major changes that your employees, especially those with teenagers, are going to have to deal with, both in terms of the Common Application and the Fafsa form. So if folks want to drop off now, I will not be insulted, but we will try to get one more question in for Robert, if you don't mind. Robert, the question is, for single-parent families in which there is no contact with a second parent, what will the Fafsa process entail?
Oh, that's a really good question, and I think it helps clarify the new definition. One thing that's not changing in the Fafsa process is that non-custodial or non-residential parents that aren't married to the student's residential parent will continue to not be part of the process. The Fafsa definition of family has always focused on the custodial household, and non-custodial parents have been excluded from information gathering. So in the specific case that you just mentioned, the absent second parent the FAFSA doesn't even ask for information about them, so that won't change. What's changing is for unmarried people who, for students who have parents that are either not married to each other in the same household, or same-sex couples that formerly were not recognized by the federal government, those parents are going to be added into the application. So people dealing with absent or difficult non-custodial parents will not have to add that complexity into their FAFSA application. I should mention that if the student applies to a school that requires the other application, the college scholarship profile, they may be asked to secure information from the second parent, but all of those colleges recognize that sometimes the second non-custodial parent is not reasonable to engage in the process, and they'll have processes by which the student can request that that requirement be eliminated, and they'll honor situations where a fully absent parent is not going to interfere with the student's enrollment at the college.
Robert, that was outstanding. I think that's a great example, too, of the kind of detail you get into, things that are on the mind of employees, and by having access to someone like Robert or Karen, and to be able to get that information and know it's correct and impartial and accurate, I think is a great example of what we do here at College Coach. So I want to thank you again. If you want these slides, you can click. I should have said that. I don't know if I did, but there's a little box that says download file there on the left-hand side. You can download a PDF of the slides we showed you today. We will be in touch with the folks that won the free one-on-one counseling session. And if you have any more information, like any more on College Coach, please let us know. Thank you again, Karen. Thank you, Robert. And thanks to all of you who have joined us today. Have a great rest of your day.